Be careful.
I'm always careful. Oh.
Johnny English.
They say that sea urchin's the ultimate acquired taste.
It's a personal favorite of mine.
Excuse me. Yes, I am sorry. Johnny English, I'm a secret agent. Sorry, I am sorry. Excuse me, sorry.
Yes, it is now time that we are about to go and check out one of the greatest spies of cinema. And no, unfortunately, James Bond is not available at the moment, so instead, we are about to talk about Johnny English, specifically the original 2003 movie. And yes, I did have to go and clarify that, considering that once in a blue moon, there would be a Johnny English sequel that would come out of nowhere, and now we are at the point where we have a whole Johnny English trilogy. But in this case here, however, I'm just going to be talking about the first movie, which again came out back in 2003. And before we actually go and discuss about the feature, I just want to go and say that I actually am familiar with Johnny English. In fact, I remember as a kid, back when the movie was still relatively new, I actually saw the movie. Maybe not necessarily in theaters. I think I recall that me and my family, we decided to go and rent it so that we could just check it out at home. And I remember back during that time, Mr. Bean was still considered pretty popular, especially on television. And I remember watching both the live action series and the animated show, and they would always provide me with a good laugh. So when I heard that there was this movie called Johnny English, where Rowan Atkinson would play a similar character to Mr. Bean, where he would have the same kind of comedy, but in this case here, he would be playing a different character, and that he would go and actually speak, it did get me curious. So again, me and my family, we decided to go and check it out. And honestly, I didn't have much memories of actually watching the movie itself. Like, it wasn't really the kind of feature where back then there would be certain scenes that would leave an impact on me, or I would remember like, oh my God, that moment was so hysterical. But I remember enjoying it just fine. Like, nothing major, but, you know, honestly, I didn't think much of it, and I thought like, okay, I've seen it. It was all right. It gave me a few laughs here and there, and that was pretty much it. And I guess since then, I never had much of a reason to go back to this movie. I think it's been over 20 years since I've actually rewatched Johnny English or anything. It was just that one time back in the early to mid 2000s, and that was pretty much it. But then recently, I did get a Patreon request where someone did ask me to go and take a look at Johnny English. And I figured, you know, why the fridge not? The patron did ask me. They did a great support on my Patreon. I might as well go and actually revisit this movie after all these years.
We can't afford any mistakes. Not tonight.
The word mistake, sir, is not one that appears in my dictionary.
So with that said, let's go and actually get into Johnny English. And in order to go and actually talk about what this movie is about, well, I'll have to go and immediately bring up one of my problems with the feature. I might as well go and discuss about one of my criticisms with it. And it's the fact that I find the story is very weak. In fact, it shows that it is secondary compared to what it mainly wants to do, which I will get to a little later. But basically, the story of Johnny English is your typical spy comedy narrative where you got the unlikely goofball who suddenly finds themselves to be a top secret agent where they are the main ones who has to go onto this mission to go and stop the bad guy from committing or activating their evil plans, which in this case here is this Frenchman who wants to become the King of England. So from there, the goofball spy would go and fail his way upwards in order to go and achieve his mission.
It can never hope to match our level of technical expertise.
So as you could tell from this plot, it does sound very similar to what several other spy comedies have done both before and afterwards. I can even think of a few movies that have that similar narrative. Like, it reminds me a lot of The Tuxedo with Jackie Chan, or even in animation, it reminds me a lot of Cars 2 with Mater's plotline, where he suddenly finds himself being a spy as he travels the world with Lightning McQueen.
Whoa! Whoa! That's the closest I ever been to missing my flight. That was...
But in this case here, you could tell that it doesn't really care much about the story or to have the story be the driving force of it. And from there, that is the reason why the narrative is pretty much left to be bare bones, and it doesn't really do anything new to the formula. If anything, it feels like it would go and rush its way with that narrative just so it could go into the main aspect that it wants to do. Like, for example, the process of having Johnny English go from this random, idiotic nobody to suddenly becoming the top agent for the job, they speed that way through in the opening, where it's kind of like blink and you miss it. And I kind of felt a little bit like a sudden whiplash, where suddenly they just decided, okay, he's the top agent now, let's go and move on with the movie. Like, there was a part of me that wondered that if maybe Johnny English is still daydreaming of that scenario, but no, they decided to just instantaneously just write a little excuse to suddenly make Johnny English the agent.
They all died in the explosion. All of them. Well, luckily there is one who survived.
And there are a few other examples where I would get that weird whiplash, or there are just some parts that it doesn't really make sense. And of course, when you have a story that is sidelined, then also the emotional connection that you would get with what is going on in the movie, or especially any emotional connection that you would have with the characters, it's non-existent. Like, they don't put in a reason for us to actually care about these characters as people. Like, if anything, they're just used as either tropes or they're used as comedic foil. Like, one example I can bring up, or another example, technically, is during the third act, where suddenly now we start to see a romance bloom between Johnny English and the love interest, Lorna, despite the fact that there are very few scenes where we actually do see them together, and it just makes the chemistry between the two doesn't feel genuine, or it kind of feels random. Why is it that suddenly Lorna would fall in love with Johnny English? If anything, it just feels like it just wants to do so because that just comes with the package with the generic story of the spy comedy. So from there, there's just a lot of these moments where even if it would try in a few instances to have us care, it just doesn't work because there's no effort prior to have us learn about who these characters are as people. Because again, anything that would make the emotional core of this picture is just put to the side, or at best, it's just secondary compared to the main thing that it wants to do.
Or you're going to get out there and save your country.
I'm going to sit in the flat.
Okay, so by that point, you might be wondering, though, if telling a story or having us learn about who these characters are, if that's not important, then what's the big goal of this? Well, the big thing that it mainly wants to do is to actually be a comedy. And the funny thing is about Johnny English, and the fact that I am reviewing Johnny English, is that even though this is live action, I could actually consider this as a feature-length cartoon, especially with the kind of formula that it wants to try out, since it honestly reminds me so much of those Daffy Duck and Porky Pig cartoons, specifically the ones like Duck Dodgers or Drip Along Daffy or Robin Hood Daffy, basically the ones where you would have Porky Pig and Daffy Duck be this comedic duo, with Porky being the straight man and Daffy Duck always receiving the punchlines.
What, where, when, how, who, what? Oh, you, huh? Just when I had him going, you had a butt in. Well, get back in that spaceship.
And when looking into Johnny English, it has this very similar formula where it's basically presenting gag after gag of these similar types of humor, especially when you look at the characters of both Johnny English and his assistant Boff. They're very much like Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, where Johnny English is Daffy Duck, where he is all ego and no brains at all. Even though it is very clear that he doesn't know what he's doing, he acts as if he knows everything, and he always takes charge no matter what. Whereas you have Boff, who is very reminiscent of Porky Pig, where he's a little bit more competent than Daffy Duck or Johnny English, but he is still loyal to him and doesn't really ask any questions. He just follows along in the adventure just to make sure that Johnny English or Daffy Duck is okay.
It's a graveyard. It's where they bring people when they pass.
Yes, all right, Boff, you can stop now.
For appearance's sake, I'll just hold your arm, sir.
Yes.
And it has been proven that you can have that kind of formula for a movie where you can put the plot on the side and just focus on that type of comedy, and you can really make that work. Funny enough, Daffy Duck and Porky Pig have actually proven that you can make that work with The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. So I do understand the motive behind Johnny English and the type of comedy that it wants to be. But it does come with a catch, or at least from my experience, I feel like it comes with a serious catch that the comedy is just not good. Honestly, I would be perfectly fine with the feature, and I would be okay with it, like, not really caring about either the story or the character development or anything like that. Like, I would be cool with it if the comedy itself is actually funny, considering that the main selling point of Johnny English is the fact that you have this Mr. Bean style comedy in which Johnny English, again, is like Mr. Bean, but now in this spy setting. But I just find that the comedy in general always falls flat. At best, maybe there are a few moments in which it did give me a chuckle, and there are some moments where it kind of gave me that surprise laugh, but they are way too far and few between, mainly because I just find that the comedy is both subdued and terribly executed. They feel extremely predictable in terms of what their outcomes are going to be. So you're already 3 steps ahead, knowing what the joke is going to be and how they're going to go and fully pull it off. And on top of that, the subdued nature is a little bit disappointing, because I feel like with these types of movies, you'd expect a little bit more out of it. Not just with spy comedies, but with action comedies that follow a similar formula. Like when you look at Austin Powers, for example, it can go pretty wacky with its comedy, or it would be outlandish, or it wouldn't really hold itself back in order to go crazy with it. And even something like Naked Gun, for example, where that film can be unapologetically cartoony with its style of comedy. But when you go and check out Johnny English, the humor is honestly very restricted. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I feel like the Mr. Bean formula is kind of its own setback. It's kind of its own downfall. Considering that when you look into a spy comedy, you would think that, yeah, like the action can go like outlandish. It could go crazy, even in serious spy movies. So you'd expect that the comedy can also go over the top, that it can also go crazy. But this one, however, doesn't. It's the subdued nature, the subtlety of how it approaches its comedy and not be as crazy as some of the action that they would pull off in these films. That's why it just feels a little bit boring in terms of the experience and why the laughs aren't necessarily as grand. And especially when this is from Rowan Atkinson, who is one of the masters of comedy with his Mr. Bean character. That's another thing that you feel like you would expect more, especially if this is a Mr. Bean type movie. Then this would allow Rowan Atkinson to really go all out and be even crazier with the type of comedy that he would do, more so than he would with Mr. Bean. But instead, we kind of got these tame jokes happening here and there, and they're just not necessarily as great. And not to mention that they just feel very repetitive eventually, where it is just the same punchline again and again and again, where Johnny English is just too stupid to be a spy, and often would need the help of either Boff or Lorna in order to actually go and help him out. So when the main aspect just doesn't work, if you're trying to be a comedy and you're not really good at it, then that's when the whole foundation of this feature just falls apart. And I think that's the biggest problem with Johnny English, where the main focus and the biggest purpose of this is to be a comedy. If you want to go and check out Johnny English, then the main reason is because you want to have a laugh. And if it fails on that mission, then the entire movie itself, in a way, does fail.
It's an unmitigated disaster, English.
I couldn't agree more, sir.
But even at that, though, I will say right now that there are some other things that I do want to bring up. And another thing that I have noticed when it comes to Johnny English, and this is something I feel like this might be a reason why it has a bit of a cult following to this day, or why there would be fans of Johnny English in the first place. I don't know about you, but I feel like Johnny English is a very pro-England movie, where a big part of the charm is to go and show some love for England, considering that the big mission that Johnny English has to do is to go and save England, and especially with the fact that the villain is actually this Frenchman who wants to go and take over the country and to turn it into this massive prison that the world can go and use. And from there, Johnny English has to go and not just save the country, but also go and save the integrity of the monarch to make sure that the Queen is still the ruler of England. So from there, I will say that I can imagine for people who are in England, or people like English people who are very proud of their country, they will appreciate this patriotic aspect for them to go and make themselves feel like I am a proud Englishman or a proud English woman or a proud English person, where they would go and watch Rowan Atkinson, a prominent British actor, create kind of this love letter for not just the spy genre, but also for England itself. So in that regards, I will say, if there are English people who do enjoy Johnny English or even the Johnny English trilogy, I do kind of get it, because I could see how it is made especially for them.
Is there anything that your Queen and country can do for you?
Well, since one is asking.
But with that said, though, I will say that, yes, I am aware that I was pretty hard on the comedy, and thus I am pretty hard on the movie itself. But I will say that there are a few things that I will say are pretty good in this movie, or even though I would say it didn't necessarily save the experience for me, I do acknowledge that there are some decent things going on in the feature. Like, for example, as a spy movie, of course there is going to be some action involved. And maybe they're not like amazing action because, again, the comedy takes a lot more importance and there are only a handful of action scenes you do get, but I will say they are pretty fun to experience. Like, there are some moments I will say are pretty cool. Like, probably my favorite scene in this is actually the chase scene where they did see that the crown jewels and all the important artifacts for the monarch, they've been stolen, and they saw that that it's been taken away in a hearse. So there would be this massive chase scene, and they would also involve this tow truck where it picked up their car, and you see Johnny English is in the car while Boff is driving the truck. Like, okay, that scene right there in terms of an action scene, that's actually pretty cool, and it is pretty creative, and that was actually fun to watch. I will say that was the most enjoyable moment in my experience with the movie. And I would even say, like, even during the climax, I won't go too much into it because it is spoilers. Like, there is some of it that I will say it is a bit fun. Like, yeah, some of the jokes are cringy, but when it does get a bit more action-packed, that is actually pretty cool. And another aspect I will say that I did like is actually the acting. I do find that the acting in general is quite good. Maybe not necessarily great because it's not like the actors have completely saved the movie, but I will say they actually did their jobs pretty well. Like Rowan Atkinson as Johnny English. I mean, of course, like, this role is crafted especially for him, where he's basically Mr. Bean, but now he has a lot more of an ego. So, of course, he knows how to play that role well.
Did you just land on the wrong building?
I did a precautionary sweep of the immediate environment.
Then you have Ben Miller, who plays Boff, and he does pretty good as well, playing as the loyal sidekick and being this Porky Pig type of character. He manages to do pretty decent in his job.
Shall I mingle with you, sir?
Yes, Boff. Once you've checked the roof.
Then you also have John Malkovich, who does play the French villain Pascal Sauvage. And not necessarily the most memorable villain, but again, he's fine with what he would do with trying to become the King of England and trying to set everything up so that his plan can go into action, and showing a bit of frustration with trying to deal with Johnny English.
Well, the next time he shows up, eliminate him.
And then there is also Natalie Imbruglia, who is not just the love interest, but she is also the sexy and far more competent secret agent who is going out to try to stop Pascal Sauvage, and is open to have the assistance of Johnny English and Boff. So I will say that the character's dynamic with Johnny English is honestly a little bit weird, but I honestly blame that onto the script. And when it comes to Natalie Imbruglia's performance, she is honestly very, very good. Honestly, I would even say that she's probably my favorite actor in this. And I mean, definitely a lovely woman. I'm kind of surprised that she hasn't appeared in more notable projects, because I can see, like, she definitely does have not just the looks, but also the talent as well. So if there is one person who is able to go and actually make the experience kind of tolerable, I would say it's Natalie.
So thank you for being such a gentleman.
So when it comes to Johnny English, from my perspective, I feel like it is disappointingly tame. You'd think that with a spy comedy movie with Mr. Bean, would be just completely wacky and would be completely hilarious with all the slapsticks and the pratfalls that would be happening. But in execution, however, it's just pretty weak, where not only do you not get much in terms of the story and the characters, but the comedy just doesn't really work that well. It's just a series of the same kind of gags happening again and again and again, where it just ends up being a pale imitator of the Daffy Duck and Porky Pig cartoons. Now, there are a few decent things that do show in the movie, like some of the action scenes are fun, and I do like some of the acting, like from Rowan Atkinson, Natalie Imbruglia, Ben Miller, and John Malkovich, but that is not enough for me to fully enjoy my experience with Johnny English. And in terms of spy comedies, yeah, this one is definitely more on the weaker side. And personally, I wouldn't really recommend checking this movie out. For me, I feel like if you want to have a better taste of a spy comedy, or if you want a better taste of Rowan Atkinson's comedy, then it's better to just stick with something like Mr. Bean or Austin Powers, because when it comes to Johnny English, or at least with the first original Johnny English, I just, honestly, I didn't get into it as much. Like, I know there are some people out there who would definitely go and enjoy this more than I would, especially for British people out there, especially with the patriotism that it would go and present. Like, I know it has its audience, but for me, however, I don't think I would be considered one of them. So if I would go and give this a rating, I would have to go with a 4 out of 10, which, yes, unfortunately, that does mean that I would give it the AniMat seal of garbage. I mean, I love Mr. Bean, and I could see a lot of great potential when it comes to spy comedies, and there are some spy comedies that I do enjoy. I mean, I am a fan of the Austin Powers movies, but when it comes to Johnny English, it's starting to make sense as to why is it that it never left much of an impact on me when I first saw it as a kid.
But there's more! But not, I'm afraid, today. Sergeant, please take this man away.
So with that said, that should do it for my little review of Johnny English. And before I go and cap this off, I just want to go and give out a huge thanks to Matthew Gardiner, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he got to ask me to review Johnny English. So, if you would like to go and be like Matthew, and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else and seeing them uncut, by the way, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/AniMat. And at the same time, while you are here, if you have enjoyed this review, then why don't you go and give this a like and also subscribe to my channel, whether it be on my main channel on Electric Dragon 505 or this one right here on AniMat's bonus features, where you never know what you are going to get in this one right over here. If you want to check out me doing videos that are not necessarily related to animation, then of course you'll find them all in the bonus features. So, with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes.
Oh.